Michael's on the loose and needs a new pair of coveralls. This is your spooky spot on NECA Toys Halloween 2018 Retro Cloth Michael Myers. It's been 40 years since Laurie Strode survived a vicious attack from crazed killer Michael Myers on Halloween night. Now she faces a terrifying showdown when Michael returns to Haddonfield, Illinois. But this time, Laurie is ready for him. Before things get out of hand in Haddonfield, how will we do a couple of size comparisons? Seeing as, after all, we have looked at a lot of Michael Myers as of late. We can move over the Retro Cloth 2018 release of Michael Myers. We can bring in the original Halloween 2 Retro Cloth Michael Myers. So you can see there's a difference, quite a considerable difference actually, when you're looking at the bodies. Not to mention as well, the Halloween 2 Michael Myers Retro Cloth release has a much bigger head than the 2018 counterpart. And then for their respected other Ultimate releases, here he is next to the 2018 Ultimate Michael Myers. And just for fun, here is the Retro Cloth Halloween 2 Michael Myers next to his Ultimate counterpart. So you can see, yes, things change. Not everybody's cup of tea is going to be the Retro Cloth releases. But I tell you, one of the benefits of Retro Cloth figures that NECA Toys are putting out is that you're getting real fabric outfits, something that the Ultimate releases can't say they have. I've noticed generally that Retro Cloth figures don't have as much accessories when it comes to their releases as, say, the Ultimate figures. And when it comes to the Retro Cloth release of Halloween 2018's Michael Myers, he's only really going to get two things to come included with him. For those included accessories, he gets himself, first of all, the hammer. The hammer, and I'm going to do a couple of comparisons with the recently looked at Ultimate Michael Myers so you can see the difference between the two. I would say you only see the point of impact where the hammer maybe had hit the first time on the Retro Cloth release, whereas the Ultimate Michael Myers, his hammer looked like he used it several times, like he did in the movie. The handles seem to be about the same, but it's definitely a notable difference between the excessive amount of blood that the Ultimate release had than what the Retro Cloth release gets. The figure also comes included with a knife. And like the other one, we'll do the comparisons of that in a second. You can see there's some nice blood on the end of it where the entryway has been made into his victim. And to compare it with the knife that we get with the Ultimate release. First of all, let's compare the handles. The handles, notably, are a lot darker here for the Ultimate release, and more of a lighter brown when it comes to the Retro Cloth release. The Retro Cloth also looks like it's been used, whereas the original Ultimate release is a much cleaner looking knife, unless he's just recently wiped off the blood. You can take the accessories, and he only has really one hand to do the job. The hand can either hold the knife. Let's go ahead and get that in there right now. Twist it in his hand, and the plastic is very rigid, I've noticed on Retro Cloth figures. And Michael Myers is no exception. You can actually get him to either hold the knife, or you can also take that out of his hand. He seems to hold the hammer just a little bit easier, because I think the handle of the hammer is a little bit smaller. You can have them displayed like that. I don't know why I'm moving it around so much like that. Let's take that out of his hand, though, and we'll get a closer look now at the figure. Now, again, I can't imagine I'm going to sell you guys on the idea of getting a Retro Cloth figure if you're not crazy about the idea of these characters having the same stock bodies and just basically fabric costumes over top. Now, the thing about Retro Cloth figures that I really like is the fact that when you get fabric like this draping on their body, it drapes naturally on their bodies. Whereas, say, for example, when we're comparing it to, let's bring the Ultimate release. The Ultimate release has to rely on the molding of the plastic to convey the idea of wrinkles, to convey the idea of how it's draping on its body. I still like Ultimate releases, don't get me wrong, but I find a charm when it comes to the Retro Cloth figures being the fact that the fabric just drapes naturally on their bodies. Comparing the two, by the way, first of all, let's look at the head sculpts. I find there's a lot more gray in this head than there is on this one. And when you do the comparisons like this, you really notice that the Ultimate release Michael Myers from the 2018 Halloween has much more yellow in his head sculpt, in his mask, than what we are getting here with the Retro Cloth release. Now, I do like the coloring, I think, on the hair on this one more than I like the coloring on this one. I may have even mentioned in the review of the Ultimate Michael Myers that I thought the brown they used was too dark of a brown, that his hair was more, did I use the word whispery? I feel like I may have. that I feel like the hair works a little bit better on the retro cloth release. Too full, I feel. I may maybe have trimmed the hair out a little bit more than that. I like the coloring just a little bit more, I think, on the retro cloth release. But yeah, a big jump of color. More yellow on this side, more gray on this side. And I would probably have imagined they would have taken a darker color of plastic, maybe something like a dark gray or even a dark black, and brushed over top of it the white. So you can then see the details standing out on it. Now, this one, you could kind of buy into the idea that the knitting needle hole is right here on the side of his neck, but there's really a lot of wrinkles happening on this face. Maybe too many wrinkles, some may say. I think this side of his face works a little bit better because at least there's some contrasting of smoother textures to the coarser textures on the sides or around it. This side's a little more rougher. Looks like the crater of a moon. His eyes are rather interesting because they are sculpted and yet they've painted all the eyes black. At least it gives him the idea that he has really dark recessed eyes that you can't even see his eyes. But I may have added just a little bit of coloring to them so it's not just stark black like this. Again, not a bad looking head sculpt, but I think there was room for improvement when it came to it. We can bring it down so you can certainly see as well the neck below the collar here. Now his coveralls is a much darker blue. I think in the movie actually it's more closer of a very bluish gray. Very too dark of a blue I think they ended up using for the coveralls here. But at least again, the idea that you're having draping fabric sitting on the body, it looks more natural. He does have the pockets there on the side. Very high collar, by the way, too. And we can actually complete the look by bringing the collar a little bit higher up here. Collar doesn't really stay in place because he's got such a big head to really start off with. But yeah, if you wanted to, you can bring the collar up a little bit more. The collar is really big, though. I mean, it does look maybe too big and have it high up like this. Not to mention as well, I'm sorry, I apologize well in advance, like the figures are notorious for picking up lint and hair and anything else that may be near it. But I do like the coveralls that they've given it. The coloring kind of reminds me, well, maybe not quite the same kind of coveralls that what we got with Roy. Roy was very blue, very, very lighter blue than what we get here with the darker blue. Of course, it's Velcroed, so you can easily open this up if you want to. What's rather interesting, though, and I assure you, I haven't done this, what they've done inside is they've put a shirt on him, but it's not a full shirt. It's only really a top, belly top, and then they've taped it so it wouldn't, it would prevent this from shifting around. Again, it's a little funny when you open this up to reveal inside that it looks like they did take, like, just literally tape and taped the shirt down. But to be really fair, too, how often are you going to really be, first of all, taking the cover-offs on Michael Myers, and second of all, opening him up to the point like this where you're going to be looking at his abdomens? So for me, again, like you can just easily Velcro this back up and you would be none the wiser. Nobody will have any idea that they've actually taped the shirt down. Wait, what? I've shown it in this review? Okay, some of you may actually now know that. For the hands are quite excessively bloody. He's got blood stained all across his four fingers. Surprisingly, well, there's a little bit on his thumb there as well. And the way they've done the hands, let me just see if I can roll the sleeve up far enough so you can see it. The plastic is very discolored. Very off-colored, I would say. I mean, of course, the hands are sculpted and painted a lot more than the forearms. The forearms are just utilizing the same retro cloth bodies. Unfortunately, though, when it comes to using the bodies, they're using older retro cloth bodies when it came to this Michael Myers release. And how I know that, first of all, he doesn't have an upper torso crunch. That's gone. It would also be difficult, the fact he's got the tape there. But another big cue, a clue to tell you that they're using the older bodies, is that this figure doesn't have the hinge on the ankle. It's only a swivel that goes back and forth on the foot. I guess certainly while we are talking about the articulation on the figure, let's cover that right now. For Michael Myers' articulation, his head is on technically a ball joint. It doesn't really so much look up, nor barely looks down. Rock it back and forth just a little bit. It's more so just rotating the head all the way around. And it is, yes, a very big head when you compare it to the rest of the bodies. But again, generally, that goes with the practice of getting retro cloth figures. You usually get a slightly smaller body. And in a lot of cases, especially when we saw the retro cloth Halloween 2, how big his head was compared to the rest of his body. For his shoulders, though, the shoulders hinge out. And because, again, you're using real fabric, it really wrinkles up naturally where the joint of the shoulder or the joint of the arm is actually moving. I like that. I do really like that for that reason. The arms go forward. The arms certainly as well go back. He has only a single hinge on the elbow and a rotation in the hand. That, yes, goes all the way around. Normally there would be a waist swivel, but because there's like tape and stuff working behind the scenes, you really can't get, well, you can move it. It sounds like somebody's carrying around candy in their pocket. Okay, I'll stop doing that. The legs go out. Legs go out. Forward, back. There's a swivel at the top of the thigh. Single hinge on the knee. And then again, when we get to the feet, we realize quickly there's very limitations. There's a lot of limitations there. I wish again that they could have had ankle articulation. Later released retro cloth figures would have had that. Unfortunately, Michael Myers still fell within that time frame when they were still using the old retro cloth bodies. So it does result in this guy having a little more difficult time standing. You can kind of compensate it by bringing the legs out. At least there's a swivel hinge there. And there you have, again, retro cloth. Let's bring him up a little bit. There he is next to retro. There's retro cloth 2018 Michael Myers. And bring him once again next to, that's what he looks like next to the retro cloth Halloween 2 Michael Myers. And for one last comparison, here he is next to the Ultimate Michael Myers. Usually you don't want to use this phrase around Halloween time, but pick your poison. I mean, it's a matter of case of whether you like the retro cloth bodies. Some people prefer really the Ultimate release figures. I kind of like both for different reasons. I like the Ultimate figures because you usually get a lot more articulation. You get a lot more accessories. And I like the sculpting of their bodies. And I just generally like the plastic bodies a lot more. But I still have a soft spot generally when it comes to retro cloth figures. First of all, because they're using real fabric bodies. The heads generally are going to be a little bit bigger, as you can clearly see here on both sides. The bookends of Michael Myers. But even though they have larger heads, I do appreciate more for the fact that they have real cloth bodies. It drapes on the bodies a little bit better, and it just generally is nice to be able to pick up a figure and know that they're wearing real fabric as opposed to sculpted plastic. Yes, Halloween, the retro cloth of Michael Myers. Oh, that has a good ring to it. Not everybody, admittingly, is going to be crazy about retro cloth figures. I don't feel like if you're a big fan of NECA figures that you have to collect anything and everything that the company is producing. If you prefer Ultimate figures, then all the power to you. Just collect the Ultimate figures. Some people prefer the retro cloth look because it has the draping natural fabric on it. Again, and then there's going to be those collectors that sort of run down the middle. I'm that collector that runs down the middle. I'm not going to necessarily display, say, an Ultimate Michael Myers along with the retro cloth figures. Usually I'll keep all my retro cloth figures on a separate shelf, and then I'll keep all my Ultimate figures on a separate shelf, and never does it ever come a case where both of them are going to intertwine with one another. For what they are and the limitations that go along with retro cloth figures, again, when you deal with a figure that's older like Michael Myers here, he's going to be a little bit more limited when it comes to his ankle articulation. But again, I still like the charm of this particular design of figure. I still like the head sculpt, I think, a little bit more on the Ultimate release, but I think I like the lighter color here on the retro cloth release just a little bit more. He has a lot less accessories, to be fair. It's a nice looking Michael Myers to be putting on display. Again, not one I'm going to put on display with my Ultimate figures. What do you guys think of retro cloth Halloween 2018 Michael Myers? Let me just throw a question out to you, the viewing audience, if I can, if you don't mind, that is. When it comes to displaying your figures, do you put all your figures together, or do you group them, categorize them? So maybe if you like have your retro cloth figures, do you put them in a different area than you do your Ultimate figures, or do you all kind of just intermingle them with one another? They're all going to the same party after all. You sort of all have them hanging out. Let me know down below in the comment section. And if you guys are also new to this channel and you're enjoying the content you're seeing, you can hit that subscribe button down below. You can turn on the bell notification, and that yes, you can come back to this channel because there are going to be more spookerific reviews coming your way during, yes, the month of Spottober. That's not a real month. Please don't ask your parents. Oh, somebody's already walking to the other room. Okay, I'm going to get in trouble again. Lots of stuff coming your way, guys. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.